Join us for the Grand Baha Mar Port Authority 14th Annual Andre Rogers National Baseball Championship. Live, June 24th to the 26th at the Emera Baseball Complex, Freeport, Grand Baha Mar. Right here on RTV.
Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight, the Prime Minister speaks up on the failed constitutional referendum. But first,
the Prime Minister defends his government's record on Baha Mar. That story's straight ahead.
2 murders in less than 24 hours. That and more tonight on our news.
welcome to our news. I'm Christina McNeil. Thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight, Prime Minister Perry Christie today defending his government's actions in relation to the ongoing Baha Mar saga, claiming very serious allegations have been made and a lot of prejudice has been brought into play regarding the matter, which demands a serious intervention. Dana Smith reports.
The Prime Minister said accusations that his government is conspiring with the Chinese are false, and the record will show that he did everything he could to find a solution for the mega resort. He also called for an end to the anti-Chinese rhetoric and prejudice expressed by some about the Chinese presence in the Bahamas.
Christie did not offer many new details about the Baha Mar project in his budget communication or when construction would resume, but instead hit back at criticisms that have been leveled at him over the stalled multi-billion-dollar development.
How could anyone in all of the circumstances try to argue or suggest some special out-of-the-ordinary relationship between my government and the Chinese?
Christie said there's been much talk and very serious allegations surrounding the project that require an urgent and serious response.
I'm going to try to destroy the myth that has been perpetuated in this country about the misjudgment they say that Christie made in opposing Chapter 11, once and for all.
Maintaining that he did what he could to facilitate the involvement of developer Sarkis's Mirlian throughout the Baha Mar saga, Christie also noted that a lot of prejudice has been brought into play. He pointed to what he said are negative attitudes among some about Chinese in the Bahamas.
We have to be very careful, Mr. Speaker, as we speak to this issue and make fun of names and cause Bahamians to mess around with our national anthem, mess around with our flag, and take these extraordinarily negative attitudes towards an independently represented country here. This orchestrated anti-Chinese rhetoric does not bode well for the friendly relations which exist between the government of the Bahamas and the People's Republic of China.
It also does not bode well, he said, for relationships with the Exim Bank and China State Construction, which are investing heavily in the Bahamas. Fort Charlotte MP Dr. Andre Rollins said last week, if the FNM becomes the next government, it will reserve the right to void any and all agreements deemed contrary to the sovereign interests of the Bahamas. Christie dubbed his comments very dangerous and damaging, noting any government agreement has to be sanctioned by the courts.
Rhetoric and false accusations coming from the side opposite and other sources are astounding to me, are not helpful, to say the least, in achieving an overall solution that would permit the project to be complete and successfully operated.
As for an update as to what exactly is going on with the Baha Mar project, Christie said negotiations in Beijing continue. The Baha Mar project is currently in receivership, sitting incomplete and closed. Reporting for Our News, I'm Dana Smith.
Thanks, Dana. Well, as debate rages on over the cause of this month's failed referendum, Prime Minister Christie is pointing fingers at opposition leader Dr. Hubert Minnis, who urged Bahamians to vote their conscience, as well as those voters whom he says were hell-bent on getting back at the Progressive Liberal Party. Vani Katut reports.
2 weeks after voters overwhelmingly rejected 4 questions put forth in a constitutional referendum, Prime Minister Christie expressed shock over accusations of a hidden agenda and asserted that the gender vote was hopelessly flawed because of some voters' desire to get back at the Progressive Liberal Party.
But as we close this chapter, this whole thing may have been hopelessly flawed because of a compelling urgency on the part of some to pay us back. And therefore the supremacy of the issues of equality were lost.
The PLP government has been heavily criticized for holding a constitutional referendum 14 years after the party supported similar bills put forth by the Ingram administration in Parliament, only to publicly campaign against them. This time around, Christie says he thought that he and Minnis were together from the start of the process. That is, until the opposition leader urged Bahamians to vote their conscience.
Whatever happens, Mr. Speaker, we accept the result. But things went hopelessly wrong. Hopelessly wrong. When we who sat together had to witness the leader of the opposition telling people, vote your conscience.
Christie says Minnis should know that some Bahamians feel badly done by because of what they perceive to be the abandonment of this process. He says Minnis even made this suggestion during their meetings.
The leader indicated to me that his wife and my wife would lead the charge.
The Prime Minister also expressed his surprise over claims of a hidden agenda. He questioned how people could think he was unchristian because of the path he took in an effort to achieve gender equality.
You can imagine how shocked I was when this element of a hidden agenda arose. My men of the cloth in allowing it to happen.
In the lead up to the June 7th referendum, some church leaders expressed fear that the fourth constitutional amendment bill, which would eliminate discrimination based on sex, would actually pave the way for same-sex marriage. Christie says only one church leader ever raised that concern during his meetings with them.
I was shocked to see the utterances that came out thereafter when everyone had the opportunity in that room to articulate their views. My goodness me, if you thought there was a hidden agenda, if you thought I acted for the LBGT, whatever that group is. This is the Prime Minister of the Bahamas in his office, in openness.
The Prime Minister concluded that the government did not promise to win the referendum, but only to hold one. Reporting for our News, I'm Vonique Tude.
Thanks, Vonique. For his part, opposition leader Dr. Hubert Minnis is denying he went back on his word to offer support for the constitutional referendum. Minnis acknowledged such an agreement was in place, but explained Christie was well aware of his position when it came to informing people how to vote.
The Prime Minister had earlier misled this House, and in attempting to do that, Mr. Speaker, he had attempted to not only impugn my character, but my honesty and sincerity.
Minnis read an excerpt from a communication he read in Parliament back on July 23, 2014, where he advised Bahamians to vote their conscience. Pointing to that, Minnis says he doesn't see how Christie could say he changed his position. In other news, the murder count climbed to 58 overnight following an early morning shooting. Just a few hours later, another man lost his life in a fatal shooting. Our Giorgio Stirrup was on the scene and filed this report.
Less than 24 hours following the fatal shooting death of a 19-year-old on Woods Alley, the second body of a male was found with fatal gunshot wounds on Wolf Road. Officer in charge of the Central Detective Unit, Chief Superintendent Clayton Fernandez, said officers responded to reports of gunshots in the area of Windsor Park and Wolf Road shortly before 10 p.m. The victim was reportedly riding his bicycle when he was shot.
The only information we have at this time, as we speak, the individual was riding his bicycle just west on Wolf Road. As he got in the area of the park, he was approached by unknown persons who shot him and fled.
Fernando told reporters that the victim is known to police but did not release his identity. However, persons on the scene claim he is Jason Green. Fernandez said police have no motive at this time. However, he said that they are not ruling out the possibility of the latest killing being connected to the murder of a 19-year-old man in Woods Alley on Tuesday.
We would like to take this opportunity to appeal to members of the public, persons who live in this general area or who may have been passing during that time, driving by, saw or heard anything, to please come forward.
Police are asking anyone with information that may assist in their investigation to come forward. Reporting for our news, I'm Giorgio Sturrup.
Thanks, Giorgio. Still to come, a community center aims to change lives in the inner city. But first,
a former crime council chairman reacts to recent crime statistics. That story coming up straight ahead.
Stay with us.